Brock Lesnar return in WWE 2K24? Or will he return to WWE at all? Let's take a look back at this whole situation with Brock. When the more recent news and allegations against Vince McMahon, Brock Lesnar's name also came up, and this was frankly a little bit of a bad look for WWE.
This is the worst.
At this point, Vince McMahon has sold and is selling his remaining stock, and by all accounts, gone and removed from WWE forever. Just for a second, wasn't it just terrible the last time, like when he was on TV?
Welcome to SmackDown!
He just thrusted himself back onto SmackDown. That's a poor choice of words, isn't it? When he came back to SmackDown and just forced himself there onto everything. Again, poor choice of words. You know what I mean. It was bad. So now we are in the newly coined Paul Levesque era, the Triple H era of WWE. So it seems that now that Vince is by all accounts gone from the company, it's becoming more likely WWE will bring Brock Lesnar back in. In my house, there's me, there's my wife, there are 2 kids, and guess what? I always get blamed that there's nothing on TV. My wife's got the Apple TV going, there's things just humming all over the place, and I get complained to every single day that there's nothing to watch. So that's where today's sponsor comes in, Surfshark. Because guess what? The complaints, they're gone. It's very quiet in Matt's house now. I can log into Netflix. I can change my IP address. I don't look like I'm living in Canada. Bam, whole new setup for all the shows. The kids don't even know what's happening to them half the time. They're seeing stuff that's on Netflix that's never even been there. My wife doesn't know how to use this stuff. But thanks to Surfshark, it's actually made very easy with their app. Being able to do things like change all of their streaming platforms to get to a different country so that it makes the viewing experience a little bit better, and you got more options in there. And for guys like me, what I really care about is all of the network security and privacy that Surfshark has to offer. But on top of that, the big thing for my wife and I, because we do travel quite a bit, is being able to have that extra layer of security on our devices. So when we use Surfshark when we travel, we can actually log into our banking, feel more comfortable. Everything is encrypted, it's private, there is going to be no issues for us, so we kind of feel a lot safer. Now what's funny is that I told my wife that it has a feature that removes all of the pop-up cookies and all of that stuff. And then she said, why are you getting rid of our cookies? So I said there's new stuff on Netflix, and she was good to go. There's no risk in trying Surfshark for a 30-day money-back guarantee. Secure your privacy with Surfshark and use the code ASSEMBLE and get yourself 4 months of extra service. Now I'm gonna go watch something on my Netflix and everything's gonna be better in my world. Now I know for a lot of fans of Brock, they feel like he never should have been removed from the company, from WWE, and he shouldn't have been removed from the WWE 2K24 video game, which we are gonna talk about more in depth. But I can see why WWE wanted to avoid much of the bad press while things were very intense with Vince. They want to distance themselves from anyone and anything involved in surrounding Vince McMahon, and this included Brock Lesnar. The last time we saw Brock on WWE TV was last year at SummerSlam 2023, where he lost to Cody Rhodes before Cody became the big time champion that he is now. Cody defeated Brock at SummerSlam, Brock raised his hand, and basically said that he's the man.
I am the man, brother!
Now we fast forward a little bit to March 2024, where WWE 2K24 was released, and Brock Lesnar is nowhere to be found. Well, kind of. The original box art for the game, for example, has Brock on it, and when Brock was removed by WWE, 2K did the same thing, right before release too. So the timeline for all of this was very tight. When Brock was getting removed from the video game, all the Vince and the allegations were coming out, and they had to yank him. It's honestly, I feel a little bad for 2K in one regard. Hear me out, because it seems to happen almost every year, where there are big time roster releases right before the video game comes out, and then they have to like scramble to either get those people removed or they can't get them removed and they're supposed to. It just messes things up. This felt like the first year where we weren't going to get any changes to the roster at the last minute, and then go figure, the Brock stuff happened. And within the game itself, you could not play as Brock Lesnar, other than the 2 showcase matches they had. These matches included Brock Lesnar versus Undertaker, which was the Defeat the Streak match, and they also had Brock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31, and this is where Seth Rollins cashed in at the very end with Money in the Bank and won the WWE Championship. These were the only 2 times you could play as Brock Lesnar in WWE 2K24, and you couldn't unlock him despite playing as him in the showcase twice, over and over and over again if you wanted to. And in my opinion, I don't see the point of this and didn't see the point of doing it this way. Having Brock playable in the showcase but not playable in the regular game, despite you just being able to play as him. Like, he's there. Commentary is there. It's all there in showcase. But I understand it's a WWE decision, and realistically, and this is just from what I believe, that 2K was on a very short timeline to be able to change or remove Brock from the game entirely, and removing him from Showcase was probably a really difficult thing to do, because I can't imagine having to yank 2 matches out of that at the very last minute, not being able to necessarily substitute anything else in that they had planned, thus shortening the showcase mode altogether, which wouldn't sit well with anybody. And so I can see, and I'm speculating here, I can see it being an easier thing that they left him in the showcase, but removed him from the regular game. Again, maybe because that's what WWE requested. More than likely. Can't say definitively because I just don't know. Now I know what you're thinking. There were other ways to play as Brock Lesnar in 2K24, dummy.
Dummy. Yeah.
Basically, in the first week, we were able to go to community creations and people had uploaded the Brock Lesnar model in there with the entrance, the official model, the Titantron, the music, all of it in there for Brock Lesnar. So you could get him in community creations. I think he's still available. I'm not sure. I personally don't think it was a good move by 2K and WWE to make him unplayable in the game, when he is playable in the showcase, like I said. But if you're gonna leave him in the showcase, if it came down to, we can leave him in the showcase, we could take him out of the regular play, you could just play as him over and over again for the 2 matches if you want. So I personally don't understand why WWE would make this decision, because what's the difference at that point? You left him in the game, he's there, and then all the assets and everything are there as well. I don't know who they're trying to fool here. Someone within WWE must think, great, he's out of the video game. I understand if you even just wanted to remove him originally just from the box art. Change out the box art like we got and just leave him in the game, but don't acknowledge him. And frankly, that's kind of what they did, but then they just removed him completely. And to be honest, a lot of fans were feeling upset that Brock was not playable in the game. I personally would see comments over and over again as the game came out, people feeling upset that Brock should just be playable and leave him in the video game altogether. So then we fast forward to today, to the recent news and reports coming out, and a lot of chatter with WWE regarding Brock's status and whether he will make it back to WWE TV, and if he will be added back in to WWE 2K24, or are we waiting until potentially next year? Ringside News did have an article talking about this where they reached out to people internally at WWE to ask about Brock Lesnar's status, and they said essentially that there is no plan to bring him back anytime soon. However, the ban with Brock Lesnar within WWE, by all accounts, is lifted, because even before this was brought up by Ringside News, Brock Lesnar was there on the roster page. He's been there like the entire time, so he was never removed. They just kind of quietly banned him from everything, from acknowledging him and all that stuff, ghosting him essentially. Kind of like Vince McMahon, but Vince is like not on the website, he's not on the roster, he's gone. TKO has just been like, you're gone, Vince.
Bye-bye.
But it does seem like it's been lifted, because we have evidence that at the Hall of Fame, for example, Paul Heyman mentioning Brock Lesnar in his Hall of Fame speech. Now it is Paul Heyman, he's gonna kind of do what he wants at that point. But we also had, at the most recent PLE, you had the announcers talking about Brock Lesnar and mentioning him by name. So this gives the fans of Brock Lesnar some hope, I believe, that he will be able to come back to WWE soon, but also from the video game side, he might also be able to get added back into the game this year. So could Brock Lesnar be returning to WWE 2K24 if the ban is lifted and WWE doesn't have a problem mentioning him on TV? And if they're discussing it freely, and maybe even in the next couple of weeks, if we see footage, video packages, or just content in general where Brock Lesnar is featured, then to me, 2K needs to get on the ball and patch him back into the base game so players can play as him. I understand it's totally a call by WWE and it's not up to 2K whatsoever, but if WWE is feeling like we can talk about him during our show, during our programming, feature him, we could bring him back to the game, and they should do this sooner rather than later, in my opinion. We have a giant gap in the DLC, and this is not to make up for it whatsoever. There are pros and there are cons to the season pass this year. There's stuff that I personally really like.
Why must you turn my office into a house of lies?
There is stuff that I'm just kind of like, I don't care. And I think adding Brock Lesnar back in there is something that a lot of fans would like to have. An extra roster member to play as, it'd be a lot of fun. And honestly, with the gaps of the DLC and some of the fans feeling like the DLC isn't a good value, patching him in could make things a little bit better and make fans feel a little bit happier too, that they feel heard. Now, on top of all of that, there's also a lot of just speculation online that if Brock does come back to WWE, it could happen pretty soon, because, and we'll put on our tinfoil hats here for a second, ladies and gentlemen, current state, current world right now for WWE programming anyways and storylines is Gunther has won King of the Ring. Now we do know that Gunther, there was a talk about it. There's been documented interviews and all that stuff. Gunther, Brock Lesnar was supposed to happen at WrestleMania and obviously it didn't happen. So what could happen here, everybody, is we could see Gunther win the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam because he is going to be getting a title match. That could be against Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, multi-man match, who knows. But if Gunther wins the world title at SummerSlam, what happens next? You could have Gunther versus a returning Brock Lesnar at Bash in Berlin. Bash in Berlin is happening right after the SummerSlam PLE. They could finally have that match, and it would be for a world title, not the Intercontinental title. And if I was putting my booking hat on here for just a moment, I would have Gunther go over in that match against Brock. You have Brock come in, you do the big, giant, meaty man match going off at Berlin.
Big meaty man slapping meat.
Gunther beating Brock Lesnar in Berlin, solidifying him as a dominant giant world champion, and having a giant contender like Brock Lesnar, it really does put Gunther over even more and makes him like a really scary dominant world champion. And also, it kind of adds a little bit more prestige to the World Heavyweight Championship. And so if we're looking at this timeline all around the summertime, I think if Brock Lesnar starts getting peppered into the conversation even more, I think 2K needs to get ahead of things and try to add Brock Lesnar back into the game for fans. And if all of this does end up happening this summer and the speculation is ramping up, I think 2K needs to really do whatever they can to flip the switch and add Brock Lesnar back into the video game by this summer.